And how is Janet not a hypocrite? She's sitting there completely plastered.
Right.
And screaming at people and saying mean things, which is exactly what Danny was doing to her.
Mm-hmm.
And she's calling Danny out for the same thing, but now she's doing it. So I don't...
Right. And she goes, she's attacking my marriage. Nia never attacked her marriage.
Right.
And her husband's the ass grabber. So she can't even keep things straight in her own mind, but she's willing to scream it out at everyone. And she ends up getting Nia to leave. Nia's like, I can't deal with this.
Ooh.
I know. Welcome back, everybody. It is Two Queens, One Screen. I'm Jen.
I'm Keeley.
And I've moved. I'm in my new office, which is also used to be a shed. But I'm in a new place to record, and it's going to slowly be getting better if you happen to be watching the video part of it.
Yeah.
I only know that Greg Henry watches the videos. I don't think anyone else does. I don't know if any of your friends watch. Hey, Greg!
Absolutely not.
We have a lot of shows to go over this week. We've got our Love Island, we've got our Valley, and we've got episodes 1 and 2. We're going to kind of talk through for a true crime story time for the family of the Gilgo Beach murderers.
Yeah.
Murder. That was concise.
Your dad will be so proud.
No. Love Island, I feel like, has been insane in the last week. So much has happened. So much has happened since this weekend.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if your opinion has changed at all on any of the people from where we started or where we were last week versus this week. Do you have different opinions on Huda? Because I feel like, I'm going to be honest, I'm harsher on Huda this week than I was last week, and I wasn't that nice to her last week.
God, no, I
Really?
don't.
Okay.
Stop.
I didn't like that Huda decided to go pull Pepe without talking to Hannah. And she also made out with and she's like, I forgot that we were going to be making out with everyone. And you're like, you just watched everyone else make out with everyone in the weird milk challenge, the cow challenge.
Yeah.
That was disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see when they get messy, dirty, and they did like the baseball hot dog weird stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But this cow challenge, I don't want to watch Fear Factor. They're like having to get the milk out of the udders and then spit it into each other's mouths and then why?
I know. We're both mothers. We don't want to chew up our food and give it to our kids from our mouth. Like, we're not birds.
No. It was, and they're like, I smell like milk. One,
right.
That was gallons and gallons and gallons and gallons of milk. In the heat. Covered in milk. They were dumping buckets of milk.
Yeah.
On people.
Yeah.
That, I will say, a lot of milk got dumped on Huda in some pretty shady ways, and I did feel badly for her in that. But I feel like there is an air of she's reaping what she's sown with her choices in the villa as far as genuinely not like moving forward and bitching and moaning. Like, you can be upset, you can cry, but then she doesn't move forward and she keeps like circling back and people are like, please behave differently. They did the door thing we talked about last time, and afterwards Taylor's like, hey. And I love Taylor. Do you like Taylor? Taylor's Matt's favorite. Don't let that color your opinion, because he also loves Tom Sandoval, so.
Well, I'm on the fence with Taylor. I've always been on the fence with Taylor. He's easily swayed by Ace, who I cannot stand.
I know.
He just rolls his eyes at Huda. He's just not a friend to her. I'm just kind of on the fence with
I think he's direct with her, though, in a way that most people, everyone was talking behind her back, and he goes straight in and goes, hey, like, we want you here. I know it hurt, but like, let's participate in the show instead of continuing to like be angry at Jeremiah. Like, if you're here, let's be here. And then, of course, the first thing, and she's like, you're right. Absolutely. I'm ready to move forward. Let me just say one more thing about it. And he's like, okay, but this has to be the last thing. And then the very next thing she does is she goes and talks to Jeremiah. And she's like, and I get that she wants closure. I will say, I don't believe in closure. I don't think that it's a thing. I think it's very rare that people actually have real closure. But maybe that's just because I am negative. I think that Jeremiah showed his true colors in a very full-on way, which were that he immediately with the new bombshell did the exact same thing he did to Huda. He's like, I'm all in. I've never felt a connection like this with anyone before. And we're like, we watched this 2 weeks ago.
So are you joking? Are you joking?
Me?
So yes, I'm talking to you. We're going to have another full-on fight right now.
Oh my God, no.
We're going to have another fight. So you have to watch him do that with another human being.
Yeah.
You have to watch him do that. That's a joke. That's a joke to me.
Oh no, he sucks.
He does suck. And I told you that before this person came in.
I don't disagree with the fact that Jeremiah sucks.
No, you did. You said it wasn't him, it was her.
Oh, I know. I said that I did think he love bombed her. I do think it's kind of the premise of the show, though. But I also think that he sucks.
It is not the premise of the show to love bomb someone.
You have to fall
and leave
in
them.
love.
And leave them? No. That is not the promise of the show. No.
Okay.
That's not how this show works. No.
Agree to disagree. I think it's about dysfunctional relationships.
Right. And then the boys turn around and stab him in the back and kick him off the show for the same thing that they're yelling at Huda for doing.
Right. Well.
No. She
didn't love bomb anybody. She said, all right, I'm going to move differently. And she's still on the show because she's moving differently, right?
She's still on the show because they kicked him off.
Mm-hmm.
Because they said, I think he's the problem instead of her.
Right. She's a negative Nancy that's a bummer to be around. If I'm on a party island in Fiji and I'm trying to get laid all the time, I don't want to hear Huda complaining in the background about Jeremiah.
No one was listening to her about how big of a piece of shit he is.
Well, Nick called him out directly, right?
And then turned around and said, oh my God, I love you. You're my best friend. Oh my God, I love you. You're my best friend.
They're always going to back each other even when they know the other one's wrong. But he called him out and was direct. And Jeremiah was much more willing to have fun. But then they saw Jeremiah doing the exact same thing to the new girl that he did to Huda. And they were like, you're done. You're out. And they all talked about him behind his back. And then they're like, now you're gone. I thought you would have liked that part. That they kicked him out.
No,
for
I
did
like that part.
Yes.
I did like that part. But this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. I told you all of this before this bombshell came in. He was the problem.
Mm-hmm.
She was not getting backup from people. She was not being validated. She was crashing out because people were not helping her and saying, just take a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he's a piece of shit. Just sit down. Take a breath. It's going to be okay. If someone had done that, she would have stopped. But nobody did that. Nobody gave her 5 fucking seconds. And this is what happened. And now they blame her. And now she just keeps going and going and going. Because all she's looking for is validation. That this guy over here is a piece of shit. And what happens? Somebody comes in and he's a piece of shit.
Right.
But in the 5 seconds that she needed someone to go, this guy is a piece of shit, believe what I'm saying, everybody's swirling and going, nope, it's you, because she's a fucking female, because she's a girl, because she's a woman. No, it's because she's a woman.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I think, if a boy had been reacting the same way that she had, they would have been like, look at how open and his heart's on his sleeve.
Yep.
And for her, it's like, well, she's being a Debbie Downer.
Yep.
Fair. Totally fair.
Yeah.
But also, I think that I think it's fair to say, again, if I'm on Love Island, I want you to do it like Hannah. Poor Hannah, who's gone.
You're telling me you're going to walk around and love bomb each one of these people, bomb them, and then turn around and leave. That's what your game is going to be.
Hannah didn't love bomb.
But you're telling me that's the premise of this show.
No, I'm saying you do it like Hannah, where you cry and you freak out and then you move on with Pepe in 2 seconds. Hannah
walked in with Charlie, immediately made a connection with him. Hannah walked in with Pepe, immediately made a connection with him.
No, she was making
Why is that?
Pepe. Well, why is that Pepe
any different than Huda? Why is this any different? It's not any different.
Because she cried and then picked herself up and went, well, Charlie's gone. I guess I'm going to
No, I'm saying while they were still there. While Charlie was still there with her.
Because she was open and
with who? Who was she open with? Who
Pepe.
was she?
She made out with Pepe before Charlie left.
Before Pepe got there? Who was she open with?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Exactly. Nobody.
Okay, fair enough.
Exactly. This is what I'm talking about.
Well,
this is what I'm talking about.
It's a messy, messy game.
No, this is what I'm talking about. You can't have both. You can't have both. You can't blame Huda for doing everything that everybody else is doing.
No, I'm only blaming Huda for complaining too much when everyone's trying to get drunk and make out. I'm just saying, you get a certain amount of time to complain, but then everyone wants to party, and you have to be willing to party, and she wasn't willing to party because she still wanted to complain.
Because nobody's her fucking friend. Everybody was rolling her. All they had to do was sit down and go, yep, you're right, just be still. It's okay. Nobody was treating her properly at all.
Right. None of these people have the emotional bandwidth or maturity to recognize that, except for maybe Amaya. And I think Amaya did, which is a weird thing for me to say because I super don't like Amaya again. How do you feel? Okay, so let's see. Jeremiah, first it was Jalen got kicked out.
Mm-hmm.
Then Hannah got kicked out, which was rough.
Yeah.
And then
she was upset. Yeah.
And it was the girls in the house that kicked her out too.
Yeah. She didn't understand.
Pissed. She did not understand. And she got kicked out for doing what Huda did.
Yep.
But Huda's still there. So Huda should be, maybe thinking about that. And then Casa Amor. And the girls are going to Casa Amor this year. And Huda has never been so happy in her life. Mm-hmm. She literally did the thing where she tapped her heels in the air out of joy. That was the happiest she's ever been.
Do that. I've never been able to do that.
Is she's like a fitness person?
I think so.
Coach or something?
Yeah.
And I skipped over Megan Thee Stallion came in and everyone had to do a twerk off.
That was so good.
I mean, we're from Boise. The Cheenies don't have butts. I can't twerk. It would be silly for me to try to twerk.
You should have watched it.
I don't feel
like I can twerk. You should have watched it. It was really fun.
No, I watched Megan Thee Stallion.
Okay.
I just said I forgot to talk about it in the beginning.
Okay. Oh, okay.
No,
it was good.
It was so good. The men, all the girls are hot. All the girls can do it. A couple of the men did well. Most of them did terrible.
Yeah.
But they were so enthusiastic that it was fun. But I'm a little concerned for Austin.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because half of his moves were hunchback moves. And I didn't.
Yeah, we weren't marionette puppet or something. I'm not quite sure.
It made me uncomfortable. And then.
Yeah.
People's Princess Taylor doing his dance with his fists up in the air. Yeah. And I was like, is it a reference to his tattoo because he has a Planet of the Apes tattoo?
Maybe.
He was kind of doing this
maybe.
But then he was also crunking. I don't know. He was doing a lot of faces. I might have to cut this out because it's borderline racist, possibly.
Oh, God.
But I didn't understand what he was doing. But also,
so good.
I'm as my son likes to say,
it was so good.
A basic suburban housewife. What do I know of these things?
Was it Shelley that did the lap dance on Megan?
Holy shit. The confidence that you have to give Megan Thee Stallion a lap dance. She like did a thing where she licked up her body. It was so fucking hot. But who started it? Elandria started it.
Yeah.
Elandria's butt is... I'm very straight, but Elandria's butt I could watch all day.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. She's amazing.
Yeah. It was good.
I love Elandria. I think she's one of the best people on the show.
Mm-hmm.
So they go to Casa Amor, and then they meet all the new guys, and then they all couple up. And ends up being odd girl out is Amaya.
Yeah.
And then the boys get to pick if they want to swap out with anyone.
Yeah.
And Zach, with a K, ends up picking Amaya. Elandria was not into him because Elandria is into Taylor.
Yeah.
Back at the villa.
Yeah.
But that meant Elandria ended up going home. And you would have thought that they all watched her be murdered in front of them.
Oh my God. It was firing squad or somebody was shot. Yeah. Yeah.
Matt said that he feels like watching this show is now like watching The Walking Dead when it first came out. Where you're like waiting to see your favorite character get brutally murdered.
I know. That's so good.
But then there's satisfying moments also.
Yeah.
Because back at the villa, the new girls come in.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest, I was kind of like hoping that TJ was going to go home.
I know, me too.
TJ is the newer bombshell guy.
The worst.
I don't trust him. All he does is talk about his old fucking dad. He's like, my dad's in his 70s and I just feel like I need to get everything done. It's like he's announcing to these girls that he's like, I am just trying to check this off my list before my dad kicks it. And
gross.
And they're like, oh my God, that's so cool. No, I get it. Oh my God, that's amazing. I love that. I love that. He has no interest in you.
Yeah.
He's not an interesting person.
No.
He's like, I come from generational wealth. I just am like ready. I was ready for him to go. But he ended up getting with the girl. Oh my God. I literally have this. I have the app and I turned it off.
At one point he called himself Justin Timberlake. And I vomited all over the couch. He's like, I'm TJ,
but sometimes they go by... Well, they love throwbacks.
JT.
I love early 2000 throwbacks. And you're like, I felt so fucking old.
What? Yeah. I know. When they said that too, I was like, oh no.
Oh, you mean like Justin Timberlake? He didn't even say NSYNC. He said Justin Timberlake. So,
Stop it.
Do we have the new...
Are you talking the blonde?
The new people aren't actually on the app. Yeah,
the blonde. Vanna.
I should have remembered her name.
Vanna.
She looks like a Pixar character.
Yes, ma'am. It is unfortunate.
There is either a massive amount of like the contouring and the highlighting.
Yes.
Is insane.
Yes.
What she's able to do with her makeup. On top of the fact, I feel like we've talked about it before, well documented, there are tens of thousands of dollars that go into work that you get done before you go on this show.
Yeah.
To get on this show. She went like crazy. She got a lot done, probably.
Yeah. Her side profile, I don't know how to...
It's the pointiest chin I've ever seen in my life. Yes. It's so tiny. And she like, did she get her jaw shaved down? Here's the thing. She's from Utah.
Yeah.
And what we know from Real Housewives of Salt Lake and what we know of the true or the secret lives of Mormon wives. Yeah. I can't get anything out. I'm like, the show with the Mormons. But these women, the culture in this little pocket is perfection. You want to be as perfect as possible. And there's the beauty industry in Utah is its own microcosm.
Oh, God,
and she is such a product of that.
Yeah.
She's only 20.
Yeah.
Matt had walked away and then came back in. And I was like, how old do you think she is? And he's like, I don't know, like 29. And I was like, no, that girl is 20 years old. 20. Yeah. And she's done all of that.
Yeah.
Which makes, I don't know. I mean, good for her. If you feel like you need to get that done, get it done. But also it's like, your brain hasn't stopped growing. You've gotten a lot more done than I would have. But do I get to judge anybody? Because maybe I would probably do all that if I could. I don't know. I have a lot of conflicting feelings.
Yeah.
About that. But she ended up picking, she was with
Ace, right?
It was this like hilarious. Yeah, she was with Ace. And then she picks TJ. And I was like, yes, TJ's out. And then no, she picks TJ. And I was like, fuck. And then, so Ace is alone. And I was like, are we going to get rid of Ace? If anyone's the snake in the grass, the sniper from the side, as Janet likes to say, it is Ace. He has got influence over these guys in a way that does not make sense because he's never had a girlfriend in his life. Why is he the one that they're taking all of their info from? But then the girl that was with Taylor ends up going to Ace. And you're like, oh my God. And then I was like, no, sweet baby Taylor. But then I was also like, you know what? It would kind of be okay because he and Olandria would both be gone together and then we wouldn't have to see. And then the girl that was with Jeremiah. No, is that correct? The girl that was with... Nope. Nick. The girl that was with Nick ends up going with Taylor, which thank God, that actually made sense. Yeah. But then Nick goes home? Yeah. This was as difficult for me as missing Olandria. Like, Olandria... And what was crazy is that all the girls freak out, and Olandria was like, I'm not crying. You guys don't need to cry. I'm not crying. And then they're like, you're so strong. And she's like, well, I've always had to be. And you're like, and that's the only time that she like faltered. And I was like, no, Olandria. And I actually got like, when she said that, because she's talked about being raised by her single mom, I was just like, oh, she's incredible. And I'm sad because you just want all the good things for her. Oh, poor lady.
Or when she's walking out and she's like, I haven't had a boyfriend in 5 years. I just want to find somebody special. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to start crying. I know. You poor baby.
And she deserves it. She's one of those people that has a great attitude, clearly has a great like work ethic and like holds herself and her value in a real way that I just really I enjoyed her and I respected her. Yeah. And it's just so sad. And then Nick, all the boys crying that Nick were leaving, all the boys were way more upset that Nick left than they were that Jeremiah left. And poor Austin, because, that's what it was. The girl who we kind of thought might go with Nick. Yeah. Stayed with Austin. Yeah. And if you had a choice between the two, you pick Austin. Why is he still here?
I don't know. I think karma's a bitch, Nick. Just saying.
That may be true. And I'm kind of excited for Sierra. Because Sierra really wanted Nick to, like, close off. And she was like, here's your opportunity to close off. And he didn't. Yep.
He didn't.
And he's like, it's still very special to me. And I don't think that there's going to be anybody else. But, I don't think we need to close off. And she was like, oh, then I need to chill out.
Yeah. So, they have sex and she's like, I'd like to close off. And he's like, I don't think so. Okay, that's how we're going to play it. Well, that's
and she's
fun.
like, you want me to still be nice to you even though that lasted 25 seconds? She didn't. She was actually very sweet with him. I was like, how is she putting up with this? But I think she's having respectful conversations and then making good choices afterwards and going, all right, I am going to back off and I am going to go explore other people. If we're staying open, then we're open. So I'm curious if the next episode they're going to tell the Islanders and the people in Casa Amor who is kicked out. Because that is really going to change things for Sierra if she knows that he's gone. Yeah. Then she'll feel more confident moving forward with new guys and talking to new guys at the new place. And then the same thing for Taylor. Because I think this is also maybe a good match for him. So we'll see. I don't know. And then, for some reason, we see, as Nick's walking out, Olandria's like, get in! And he's like, oh my God, what?
Weird. We've never seen that before. That was so weird. I don't know what they're doing with that.
Something sneaky off to the side, which I enjoy. I want to see all the weird messiness. And this, like Matt said, this is like The Walking Dead. Like, who of our beloved characters is going to be get picked off next?
Oh, God.
It's good, though. It's good. Should we get into the Valley?
Oh, my God. Coyote ugly.
Is that in reference to Janet? Is that what that was?
I don't know. I mean, Jasmine said that at field day, and I don't understand it. But okay, yeah.
I missed that part. Okay. I have to say, did you have an easier time this week than last week?
Yes, I did, except for the whole bro hugging, bro circle thing. That was cringy at Jesse's house.
That's going to take an hour of our time.
But can I tell you, I'm going to swallow some pride right now and say this episode, I was enjoying Jesse quite a bit. And I hate that man. But I really liked him in this episode. So
it's interesting because I feel like I see him trying. Yeah. And then, do you know what he reminds me of? I don't think that Jesse is as bad as Jax. I think Jesse is actually more similar to Stassi, young Stassi, than Jax.
I can see that, yeah.
She talked about her dark passenger.
Yeah.
Jesse has a dark passenger.
Yeah.
That for some reason pushes him into his lizard brain when he gets frustrated and he can't get out of it, and he'll call his ex-wife a hooker in front of him.
Yeah. Yeah. But then he's like this when we see him in this episode, and I'm just like, oh, Jesse.
Well, let's just jump right in then. Uh-huh. So the first thing that happens is we see Luke and Kristen at their new place. Luke likes the house that they're in, that they're renting, and they're going to be there for a while. And he is a Colorado boy. He likes nature. He likes to be out in the middle of nowhere. He's a camper. And I think he does it in a tent and not in a camper, which not my speed. No, thank you. And it's very sweet because they're talking about their plans for the future and how he's more comfortable with California and the LA area now. And he's being very sweet with Kristen. And then they start talking about, she's in her ovulation window and that he's helping her track that, which, if we remember, I think it was in Santa Barbara, she had not been tracking it correctly or something had gone wrong. And he's like, no, let's do it together. It's going to be fine. He's asking her how to keep her stress levels down. Just everything he was doing was just very sweet and loving and good. I was just so happy for Kristen watching them together. It was very sweet. And they were having this cute little fancy lunch together. At the same time, Danny and Nia meet up with Benji and Zach at a little lunch place. And they tell Zach that they know, hey, we know that you know the secret that Luke is about to propose to Kristen. And he's like, okay. And I thought that was really cute. And they're like, we know that you know. And because they are not on good terms with Janet and Jason, they're pretending to host the Maui vacation friends trip. And Luke wants everyone to go. But he also doesn't want Detective Doty to know what this trip is really about. So the ruse is that Nia and Danny are going to be hosting it, but they're on bad terms with Janet and Jason. So Zach is going to pretend that he's also helping, and he's going to invite Janet and Jason. And they even explain it in the show how fucking backwards all of this is. It's really frustrating. I feel like the season's already falling apart. I feel like the show, I don't know where it's going to go next season because none of these people really enjoy each other. There's two separate groups of friends that hang out. And it's why are Janet and Jason going even for Luke and Kristen at this point?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because Jason has collapsed. Jason has collapsed and he can't come back. I don't know what's going on there.
No.
Yeah.
And every time we see a little bit of old Jason being decent, Jason being sweet.
Yeah.
2 seconds later in the interviews or the after show, you watch him, the reprogrammed version of him from Janet, pop in and go, well, I don't know how genuine that is, and we'll have to see if this is a good step forward. And you're like, you just said that you're good.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll get into more Jason hate shortly. But they decide to do their organizing and messaging out. So Danny and Nia are sending it to everybody. Danny accidentally also sends it to Nia, which was really funny. She's like, you just invited me. And he's like, 3 under 3, baby. I think he gets to say that until he no longer has 3 under 3. He's about to have 4 under 4. I think you get to say that as much as you want because that is a daily struggle until they are out of diapers. And then even then, until they're in school, really, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think. That's too many fucking kids.
Mm-hmm.
2 is too many.
Mm-hmm.
I think 4 seems insane.
Oh.
But they invite everybody. They FaceTime with Luke and Kristen, and they're like, let's go to Maui. And Luke is pretending that it's not the trip that he planned, and he's like, what? Luke, Kristen's gonna figure it out, right? Yeah. If that's your attitude, Luke, she's gonna get it figured out. So here's the thing that we were mentioning earlier, and the weirdest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life, and the whole thing made me angry. Poor Matt. We're sitting there, and I'm screaming at the TV today watching it. I was like, what the fuck is this? This is so stupid. He is not a licensed professional. All of this is fucking backwards. And what I'm talking about is Jesse invites all the boys, which I thought was good. He actually invited everyone to meet up with his life coach, Scott, to have a men's club, because only men can understand what other men are going through. I'm willing to accept that. I am willing to say dudes need to be able to come together and be like, we're having struggles. These are what our struggles are. Let's support each other through it. I'm all for it. The patriarchy hurts us all, including men. Men need to be able to talk about their feelings without someone going, I was just about to say a slur. I almost said a slur. Okay. Without saying something horrific. So this men's group gets together, again at Jesse's house. No one can figure out the doorknob. He moves them all into the backyard, and he said something that I didn't know if you picked up on. He's like, all right, we're going to go outside. Does anyone need any rose water?
I did hear that. I was like, rose water spray.
Rose water spray or psilocybin? Okay. So rose water spray, you use, I started using it because I picked it up at Trader Joe's, and it keeps you hydrated. You can spray it like over your makeup, and your face can then rehydrate itself without having to redo everything. But it's a facial. It can be used as a toner. Rose water is for keeping your face hydrated. Psilocybin. Shrooms. Does anyone need shrooms? Rose water and shrooms, not similar in this context. What the fuck is he talking? Okay. It just took me a little bit too much. I had to Google. So I found that annoying. So they get the guys grouped together, and they're talking about how they're going to, use this as a chance to build each other up and make their friendships better and support each other. Jax has decided, he announces that he will not be going on the Maui trip because he really just wants to spend time with his son and let Brittany have a good time, which at face value, correct. I like that. That was a good choice. It's also a strange choice for him, right?
Right.
When is he opting out of something?
Right.
All he did during rehab was throw temper tantrums that he was missing out on things.
Yeah.
So I was surprised by that. But okay, is that positive growth? Yeah. Maybe. We all know that it's not. But okay, that was a good choice. Whether it was for a good reason or a bad reason, we will see, but it was the correct choice. And Scott decides to explain this concept of a list, which is the things that you carry around, the resentments that you carry around, they stack on top of each other, and then you have this list of resentments that actually just sits there and festers, and it gets worse, and it destroys your relationships. I believe that resentments are bad, and there's a lot of reasons. As a people pleaser, I've been doing a lot of work on myself and realizing that actually people pleasing can be actually a manipulation tactic to get my way and to force people to like me the way that I want them to like me. And then you end up resenting them. And let's be honest, if the person knew that what you were doing for them would make you resentful, would they still actually want you to do that? Probably not. But anyway, resentments are bad, and they eat away at your soul and destroy relationships. I can cut that out. It's something that I've been working on very hard in therapy with a real therapist, unlike Scott. So he explains all of this to them, and he goes, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have our list where we're going to stand up. You're going to stand across from another man. You're going to put your hand on their chest, and you're going to say, you did X, Y, Z, and it made me feel this way. And then you're going to clear your list. Here's what I noticed about the way that you clear your list. It's literally the fucking opposite of an iMessage, which is what all of us have learned over the last 30 fucking years of the correct way to have conflict resolution. Which is, I felt this way when this happened. I am not responsible for someone else's feelings. No one is responsible for my feelings. It is worth taking into account that you will affect other people's feelings, right? But if you actually want to move forward, you have to take ownership for yourself, and you can direct it to them and say, when you did this, this is the feeling that I had. You have to own your own feeling. The way that Scott's telling them to do it, they're like, you did this and it made me feel this way. It's so fucking counterproductive. And what he's like, and then they can't say anything to you. No.
It's because he's not a real therapist or counselor or anything except a Cameron goblin. I hate him.
A Cameron goblin?
Or a camera.
A camera goblin. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No. It was like, were you talking about like Candace Cameron? No, he's awful.
Yeah.
I just hate him. So the first one to go is Jesse. And Jesse decides that he wants to clear his list from Luke. And they stand across from each other and he puts his hand on Luke's chest and he goes, when last year, which we saw last year, and they keep doing cuts to it, last year you were so blindly loyal to your girlfriend that you stood up for her and let her do some things, and I didn't like how you talked to me and it was very bad, and I'm ready to move forward. It's like, did you need to say that?
Yeah.
It seems like they've already moved forward, for one. Two, you could have written a letter and then not sent it. I think, and Luke's like, this is California bullshit. Mm-hmm. And I would agree with Luke.
Yeah.
I love therapy. That's not therapy. I think, and then Luke isn't allowed to respond to any of it. He just goes, okay. It's like this weird drive-by of emotional, like, trauma dumping where it's like, you did XYZ and I forgive you. I actually had someone do that to me once, where I hadn't invited them to my wedding, which, by the way, there were 10 people at my wedding, including Matt and I, so most people were not invited to my wedding. And I literally had someone go, you didn't invite me, and that really hurt me, but I've forgiven you. And I literally had to sit there and go, like, okay. And then in the back of my mind go, I don't need your forgiveness. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. Mm-hmm. I do not give a shit.
Yeah.
It was Erica.
I think you have to cut that out.
She's not going to listen. She's not listening to this.
Okay.
And then they keep kind of pushing Jax. And so Jax decides to go, but he's like, well, I kind of want to do this for everybody. And I was primed. I was so excited to see Jax's list because he is the angriest what about you guy in the world. And he actually just got up, and I'm wondering if they cut stuff out, because there's got to be juicier parts of that. But he gets up, and Scott's like, yeah, use me as, like, the avatar of everyone else. You still need to make eye contact with me and do this. So Jax puts his hand on his chest, and Scott's like, look into my eyes. You gotta make eye contact, buddy. And Jax starts crying, and he's like, I'm going through the roughest time of my life, and I'm so angry, and I take it out on everyone, and I want to do better. I wanted him to clear a list so bad, and instead he was feeling very, like, apologetic. So all the times that I need him to be doing that, like when he has a conversation with Brittany, he does it to a room full of men. Mm-hmm. Did you have any feelings when he was doing that?
He to me, he didn't do anything. I think he fake cried. I don't think he cried at all. He just kept touching his eyes to try and make himself cry. I think he was trying to poke himself in the eye, so maybe he could cry. Luke, when they cut to Luke in the background, I think he rolled his eyes at one point because Luke could smell the bullshit all the way from behind him. I don't think that Jax said or did anything. Anytime Jax is in a room full of people, that's the garbage that he spews. He just says, I have a terrible life. I got out of rehab. I got served divorce papers.
I have nothing left.
I have nothing left. I haven't seen my son. I'm an angry person. Okay, that was not anything. That was not a list. That was not anything. You didn't do or say anything to anybody.
I think it was a preemptive, like, everyone be nice to me.
Sure.
Was kind of the vibe the vibe that I got, because I think every single person there probably has a very valid, like, I'd like to put my hand on your chest right now and tell you exactly all of the shit that you've put us through.
Yeah.
But they can't, because he's in this vulnerable, he's crying, he's in a vulnerable state. And everyone's like, I'm not touching that with 10-foot pole.
Well, they cut to Jason, and Jason's having some meltdown. He's so moved by it. Did you see that? My fucking God. What are you doing?
Don't understand.
What is wrong with you?
Why is he so willing to go after Danny and not willing to acknowledge Jax's bullshit? Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yep.
Speaking of, Danny and Zach it up.
Mm-hmm.
And Danny puts his hands... Danny and Luke... Nope. Danny and Jason...
Third time's a charm. We got it.
Danny and Jason get up, and he puts his hand on his chest and he goes, listen, I love you, and I haven't been showing you that. He does the opposite of what he's supposed to do. Instead of confronting, like, you've been an asshole, he's like, I'm apologizing to you. And he says, I love you, and I have not been showing you that. I definitely didn't show you that till last week. I went after your wife. I should not have done that. I apologize for doing that. And I care about you, and I care about our friendship, and I want to be able to move forward. And Jason's like, you can see it for a second where he's like, I care about you too. And I want this to be a good first step forward moving. And it seems good. And they like hug, and it seemed really good. And then 2 seconds later, they cut into the interview, and he's like, we'll have to see, who fucking knows? Like, he's like, I don't know how genuine that was.
Yep. That was nice, right? For 11 episodes, all Danny is doing is apologizing. What are we doing?
And apologizing for the same 2 incidents over and over and over again.
Yep.
He's apologizing publicly. Yep. He's apologizing individually. He's taking his wife to couples counseling. It is egregious.
Mm-hmm.
So it just kind of sucks, because I think you see Danny really trying to make positive momentum forward and getting 0 credit for it. I just feel so bad for Danny. And I keep double checking, and they actually, I think I sent you the video. Mm-hmm. Mia's like, we're not quitting. We're just busy. We just had a 4th baby. Like, I'm just busy. It's like, okay. Thank God that they're not leaving.
Yeah.
I'm proud of them for not leaving, because somebody needs to be a good person in all of this.
Oh my God, yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I love Nia. Mm-hmm. Nia is as close to perfect as you can get.
Yeah.
I love them. But anyway, it's clear that Jason is not over it, and he doesn't actually want to move forward, even though that's what he just told Danny to his face. You're allowed to have that conversation and say, I'm not cool yet. You're allowed to say that. I'm not ready to move forward. That's not what Jason does. Jason is like, I'm not. He's like, yeah, I love you, man. And then he's like, never mind.
Mm-hmm. So
then they kind of switch gears into like, okay, Danny didn't play the game like Scott wanted with aggressive, like, here's how you fucked up and I'm willing to forgive you for it conversation. And they do start talking about Danny's drinking. And he says, actually, I hate to give Scott any props here, but he does say, okay, are you going to the bar, ordering several drinks, having a couple of them, and then just coming back with one? So it looks like you've only had one? Is that kind of like the spirit of you're drinking more than maybe you're showing people that you're drinking? Is that kind of what it is? And Danny's like, yeah, sometimes. And he's like, okay, so you're not presenting yourself in an honest way, so people don't feel like they can trust you. And I think that there's some validity to that. But I also think that in general, Danny moves in a pretty like upstanding way, and he seems like a very decent guy. And so to nitpick him on this issue and turn it into he's a raging alcoholic and everyone's trying to hide it, it's like, I don't know. As a viewer, if he's acknowledging, I do drink more than I want people to know about. That it's like, is that where there's smoke, there's fire? Or am I right in saying I think it's still getting blown out of proportion? What do you think?
When you have Jax Taylor sitting next to you, I think it's a problem. He's a cokehead. He threw a table at his wife. Like, yeah, no. Nope.
No.
It's
okay.
So, nothing's the same. No.
Forever, I think I'm going to be on Danny and Nia's team.
Yeah.
I think that's just what it is.
Yeah. No.
So, speaking of Danny and Nia's team, then after the men's get together, there's a ladies get together at the Mexican restaurant. And everybody's there.
Mm-hmm.
Sheena and Janet and Brittany and Michelle. And Janet and Michelle are like a team on one end of the table, and it's a long table. It's like The Last Supper.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got Michelle and Janet on one side, and then we have Kristen and Nia on the other.
Yeah.
And it was so uncomfortable because the way that it shook out is Nia and Janet are at the opposite ends of this long table, and they're just looking at each other and then talking behind their hand to the person next to them about the person across the table. It was so uncomfortable. We also had Melissa was there with Jasmine. Melissa, I think I want her to be more of a presence to justify why she's there.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Agree.
But she's there, and hopefully she'll be as fun as Benji is at some point. But they're basically talking about how they're not good, and then apparently everyone had too many margaritas. Because, and I guess they also talked about it in the after show, they said the margarita machine was also behind them, so they all had to be yelling anyway because the margarita machine was so loud. But Michelle confronts Kristen/Nia, but it was really Kristen. She wants to understand why people are bringing Jenna around. Like, why is Jenna having to come around? It doesn't make sense that people are inviting her everywhere, and it makes her uncomfortable because she's not comfortable with having exes around, and she thinks it's Kristen being sneaky. And Kristen's like, what the fuck? Because one of the things about Kristen is Kristen will be direct to your face. If she's coming after you, she's coming after you pretty directly. She's not hiding behind anything. And so Michelle is bothered and thinks that this is something that she's orchestrating, which Kristen isn't. And Michelle's just, I think, being very sensitive. Do you think that she is allowed to say, like, you're not allowed to invite my boyfriend's ex to this stuff? We've seen Jenna a little bit peripherally throughout the years, but never as heavy as we have the last couple episodes.
Well, they cut to Zach, and Zach's like, it's me. It's not Kristen. He's like, hello, is anybody there? It's me. Why are they blaming Kristen? I was the one that did it, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
And that is Kristen saying that back to Michelle. Why are you pointing this at me? It was never me. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, I think I said this a couple episodes ago, is why is this girl here? And what are we doing? So I don't know. I think she needs to go away. I think she's a Jessie plant because Jessie keeps spiraling with the whole Michelle cheated on me. And I think she's there to try and make this story have legs and make this story move. That's what I think. But
no, I think you're 100% correct.
I don't know.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I think she does nothing for the show. I don't understand why she's there. I think you said, was it last week or the week before, something about 6 degrees of Sheena, like she knows Sheena or something like that.
Yeah. She was, the whole thing was just like, why is she here? And Janet's sitting there, and Janet's clearly more than a couple margaritas deep. And she just starts yelling, and she's like, you need to be accountable, Kristen. Accountability. And Kristen's like, I am willing to be accountable. I didn't do this. And we all know that she actually didn't. And poor Nia is just filled with anxiety. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I can't deal with this. And Janet's like, rah, rah, rah. Ends up screaming at Kristen to the point that Kristen's like, there's no reason for me to be here. I thought it was actually the classy, calm move where she was like, I'm just going to go.
Yep.
I'm not going to get screamed at from across the table. I'm ovulating. I'm not dealing with this, right? Like, I'm going to go.
I'm ovulating.
And she gets up and leaves. And Janet's like, get your to-go box. I did think that was kind of funny. Get your to-go box and go. Nia is so overwhelmed because now she doesn't have her, like, support person with her. And I don't think Michelle would have cared that much if it hadn't been revved up by Janet over and over and over again. So they're like, she's being sneaky. Kristen's doing this thing. Kristen's not doing this thing. Kristen's trying to get pregnant. Kristen's really not that invested in any of this. And all of her gossip is over a year old. Mm-hmm. Consistently. Yeah. So, like, she's not coming for your marriage. Well, when she said the ring thing, the only reason she did that is because she attacked Janet. And Janet's like, yeah, I feel like I'm mad at Nia because Kristen was protecting Nia. And then she said the ring thing. How is that Nia's fault?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. She's like, I feel like they're a whole group. No, Danny and Nia are not involved in what Krista's doing. It's ridiculous that she's roping her into this. And I fucking hate Janet for thinking that she gets to keep doing this. It's driving me nuts. Yeah. And she ends up going after Nia, and Nia just starts crying. Mm-hmm. And she's like, this is too intense. Like, the screaming in my direction. You just made my friend leave because you couldn't be chill. Like, it's too intense. And Janet goes, oh, the tears when it's too intense. I cry at the drop of a hat. Yeah, me too. I cry even when I'm not even that upset. Mm-hmm. So it's really shitty of her, especially when 3 under 3, she's in the middle of trying to wean, like, her breastfeeding children. Like, fucking hell, Janet. Janet just sucks is the moral of the story.
Well, and how is Janet not a hypocrite? She's sitting there completely plastered. Right. And screaming at people and saying mean things, which is exactly what Danny was doing to her. Mm-hmm. And she's calling Danny out for the same thing, but now she's doing it. So I don't... Right.
And she goes, she's attacking my marriage. Nia never attacked her marriage.
Right.
And her husband's the ass grabber. So she can't even keep things straight in her own mind, but she's willing to scream it out at everyone. And she ends up getting Nia to leave. Nia's like, I can't deal with this. What does she end up saying? She's like, oh, it's always the tears, blah, blah, blah. And Nia stands up. She's like, fuck you, Janet. And Nia said that last season, the thing that she regretted most and was so stressed about everyone seeing from how she behaved last year, the only thing she really regret was when she said fucking penis. She's like, everyone saw your fucking penis when Jax pantsed Danny. Yeah. She's like, my in-laws are going to see you. And they're like, oh my God, you got her to say fuck. And it was like, well, yeah, but it was kind of warranted. Even Janet's like, yeah, I deserved that. I was out of line. But I don't know. Here's the thing about it, is that Nia holds herself to a high standard. Mm-hmm. She doesn't force everyone else to live by those same standards. Yeah. Janet thinks that she sets the standards for everyone, and she finds it irritating that Nia sets those standards for herself, even though she's not putting them on her. She's like grossed out by it. I think she feels insecure about Nia. I would feel wildly insecure if I was in a friend group with Nia.
Janet is so jealous of Nia.
Right.
100%.
Oh my God. Of course. But you don't have to be a dickhead to her.
Yeah. Yeah.
She just sucks. So the next day is field day, which, again, nobody does this.
No adult does this.
Adults. People don't really do this. But Jasmine and Melissa decide to have a field day where they're going to get everyone together to work out some aggression. Mostly they pointed this at Janet, which makes sense because of the night before. But also they were talking about how, like, hot and red and sweaty Jax was. Yeah. And how clearly Jesse needed to get some aggression out as well, probably. Yeah. And poor Jenna had been asked ahead of time to be the ref, so it's not even her fault, but, like, she was just the catalyst of the huge fight from the night before, and it's like, there she is again. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, Jenna, you don't even mean to be the issue, but you're the issue. And they do some fun games. They do the baseball bat spin around, and then you have to carry an egg, and then they do tug of war, and then I think that was it. So it was really just to have everybody in the same place and have conversations and have it be awkward that there are people who aren't talking to each other in the same place. And Brittany pulls Janet aside afterwards, and Janet's checking in and being like, how are you doing? Are you okay? You just, you served Jax with papers. And this is, I think, the first time they've been in the same place. And they just stay apart.
Mm-hmm.
Ideal. And Britt is talking about how it actually, she still feels good about the choices that she's made, but she kind of feels more sad about it now.
Yeah.
Like it feels like a sadder thing because she's looking at him and this was her family. And then all of a sudden he is a stranger and they're enemies. She doesn't even know who he is anymore and they're enemies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of me goes, it's got to be such a mindfuck to go from being in love with Jax Taylor and like blocking out all of the awful things that he's doing or like moving past them as quickly as possible or just burying them to suddenly like having to look at it all the time. Mm-hmm. And that's got to be really jarring.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had breakups before, but the idea of like going through that with someone that you've had kids with seems like a whole nother level of intense.
Yeah. It's really awful. Yeah.
But Brittany then brings up to Janet like, hey, we're about to go on this trip to Maui. Have you talked to Janet yet? Because last night was intense. Or have you talked to Nia yet? Because last night was crazy. And she goes, well, I think that I was over the line. I think I crossed a line last night. And I think that I shouldn't have done that. And I do feel badly. But also it's hard for me to apologize because I'm still really angry with her because I've lumped her in with Nia. And you're just like, about the rumor with Jason in the ring. You're like, do you not
over
hear
it? Yeah.
That wasn't Nia. It wasn't Nia.
Mm-hmm.
She gave that rumor no legs.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you lumping her into this? Because your feelings? If the roles were reversed, Janet would be ripping that person apart.
Mm-hmm.
It's just frustrating. So everyone's getting ready to go on the Maui trip. Everyone's packing. It's very cute. Luke has to take his gecko to Kyle Chan. I'm sure that that's not the enclosure that gecko has to stay in usually. Like maybe that's just a vacation enclosure. But that was a very large gecko for a very small, very small container. It is so weird that Kyle Chan is the engagement ring / gecko babysitter.
I know. Oh, right.
You know when you have your like list of things, like this is who I am. Like I have my line of jewelry. I have my liquor bottle thing that I'm doing. I'm a fun gay guy in WeHo. And I also will babysit your geckos. Good for you, Kyle Chan. What a weird friendship.
Yeah.
In a good way. I like that. I like who he is. I wish we got more of Kyle Chan.
Yeah.
Plus, it's probably good for his business. Kyle Chan, get that bag, baby. Unfortunately, we also learned that Luke's grandma's not doing very well. Mm-hmm. She's got cancer, and so before they get to Maui, they're going to go spend a little bit of time with his grandma, because who knows how much time she has left. And then he's also, so that's got him all feeling all sorts of ways. Yeah. And then on top of that, he's feeling all sorts of ways because he's literally about to propose to Kristen. Yeah. So in this massive trip that he's organized. So I would be a mess of anxiety. And you can see he's like holding it together really well, but it's like starting to show. Janet and Jason, they go to them packing. And it's just everyone kind of quietly talking shit about each other within their couples. And she says that she feels gaslit by Nia. When has Nia gaslit her?
What?
Oh, because of Danny's drinking? How does it does not fucking affect you, Janet?
No.
She is literally grasping at straws.
Yep.
I don't know. Janet
you talk
sucks.
About not taking accountability, Janet.
No one's good. No one's good with each other. It's just everyone talking shit. Then we see Jax right before the Maui trip. He's going to have lunch with Brittany. So he's at the place. He orders a Coke and a coffee. So he's just got to stay very caffeinated, I guess. That's like the only drug he's allowed to have anymore.
On camera.
And he ends up calling Brittany and he's like, hey, where are you at? And she's like, oh, I'm not coming. And he's got her on speakerphone. So it's just the camera looking at him at lunch by himself, being stood up with her on the speakerphone. And she's like, yeah, I'm not coming. He's like, why aren't you coming? And she's like, because I got a million DMs last night that you were out at the bars. Sorry. Being belligerently drunk. And yeah, I'm not interested. I'm not coming. You're supposed to have changed and you clearly haven't changed at all. And I'm sick of it. I'm not interested in coming. And then she just starts rattling off. And I think it's when she said that you're a vile, terrible human being. And he goes, well, that's it. And he hangs up on her.
Yeah.
I think that's probably when he should have hung up on her. That's fine. They don't need to keep having a conversation. She's not going to get through to him by screaming at him. And she won't feel better later on that she did that. So that's fine. He's saying, I was at home by 11. I wasn't even out that late. If you're a recovering alcoholic addict, barely got out of rehab, and he hasn't, this is a couple weeks later, he still hasn't seen Cruz.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to be co-parenting, and he's like, we were supposed to have this meeting so we could get together and talk about co-parenting and plans for moving forward and blah, blah, blah.
No.
Nope. Also, we know, as people who follow the Bravoverse, that Jax Taylor's first stint in rehab, which is what we watched, that first 30 days, didn't actually mean anything. And that he then goes to rehab again, which hasn't happened yet in the show, and that's when he starts taking it really seriously. So that makes more sense for that timeline that I was scrutinizing on his Watch What Happens live appearance, where he was like, yeah, it's been like 200 and something days. And it's like, well, shouldn't that have been 300 and something?
Yeah.
And it's because he is still being a shithead while pretending to not be a shithead. Right?
Yeah.
Also, he's definitely still being a shithead in real time right now.
God, yeah.
But he says, what I do on my time is my business. We're separated. She asked for a divorce. We're not going to do that.
Fair. Fine.
Yeah, that's kind of how it goes. Except the only thing that gives me pause is that if you're actively saying, I've got anger problems, I'm bipolar and I need to be medicated, and I'm an alcoholic addict, if you're acting a fool when your kid's not around, the chances of that bleeding over into when you are taking care of your autistic toddler probably actually does affect the other person.
Oh, yeah.
And if you, I don't know, so I'm a little torn on like, yeah, you should be able to go do whatever you're going to go do when you're single, but like, it does, if it's going to affect your kid. He thinks that her dating other men is going to affect his kid, and he starts throwing that in her face. Whereas she's like, no, you're an alcoholic and you're drinking again. And you're being belligerent. No, there's a problem there.
Yeah.
I think that there's a line, and he's pretending like he's not crossing that line.
It just means she's not going to let him see Cruz. That's all.
Yeah. So, anyway, that was fun watching him get stood up. And then he had to take a lot of to-go boxes this episode. So then everyone gets to Hawaii except for Jax. And I was curious about what you thought about this, because when they get to Hawaii and they all get to the hotel, and Zach and Benji get updated to the presidential suite, and he's like, oh my God, Nia and Danny, should I give them the presidential suite, or is that going to look weird? Like, she'll know. And they're like, yeah, don't worry about it. She'll know and she'll figure it out if you give him. And then Luke's like, why the fuck didn't he give me the presidential suite? He should have just given it to me right then.
Yeah. No, I don't think they should have given it to him. Kristen would have figured it out.
I agree. And then also, apparently the presidential suite came with Jesse.
Well, he got the, like, what did they call it? The butler suite. He got the butler suite, which is like a half bath and a half bed, because he had to share the bathroom with Zach and Benji. That's why he was waiting outside while they were
Zach said that he had his own bathroom, but that he was refusing to use it. And then Jesse was like, I didn't have my own bathroom. Who knows? The answer is we'll never know.
But I loved that Jesse had to be in there with Zach and Benji. It was so funny.
It was so funny. And how cute were Zach and Benji, like, spraying each other in the giant shower? The poor Benji smacked his head on the wall. I know. That was the cute. They are two children. I love them. They're very fun.
Yeah.
And then also we see everybody unpacking in their rooms. Everyone's still talking shit. And Aaron's there with Michelle. So Aaron has come on this trip. And he's basically saying that he feels stressed out by Jesse, but also, he didn't really talk to Jesse when everyone was getting checked into their rooms. And maybe one day it's like, this is like, maybe in the future we're all going to get along and it's going to be cool and we can go on family vacations together. And you and I are going, no. That's fucking weird.
No, we don't do that. You don't do that.
And I think even Michelle was like, no, it's sweet of you to try, but no.
That's not how it works.
No. The more that we're seeing of Aaron and the more that we're getting to know him, I feel like we're getting to know Aaron better than we're getting to know Melissa. Jasmine's Melissa, for example. So, and I'm liking Aaron more and more.
Yeah.
And I'm getting less distracted by his eyeballs. Still getting distracted by his eyeballs, but slightly less.
Yeah, yeah.
They all go poolside. There's Nia and Danny. Luke got everybody cabanas, and then they're also running down to the beach, but they're all having kind of like a poolside party. And Danny and Jason are talking, and they cheers, and it seems like they're good. They're in a good space. And they're like, we got into a good place, but then our wives are not in a good place. So then it makes everything harder. And Jason's like, what if we just have them over now? Like, we've got the whole rest of the trip. Let's try and get to a good place now, and then maybe we can move forward in a positive way. Do you think that that'll work? And Danny's like, we can try. They bring them over, and Nia is stoic, poised, Miss USA.
Hiding under a hat and glasses.
Gorgeousness. Just like icy, but in the chicest way. Also, how fun was her, like, bikini? It was like a new mom bikini, which is what I wear, even though my children are 12. But it's where the bottom comes all the way up to your rib cage. But it looked, she's so chic in everything she puts on, but it was very sweet. Janet is actually the first to apologize, which very rarely happens. Janet said, I clearly had way too much to drink, and I should not have yelled at you. And Nia goes, but was it that early, though? Fuck.
Yep.
She's like, no, you don't get to just say drinking. Like, you were being an asshole.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, and I will say, Janet, if I was Janet, I would have played I haven't been drinking that much, even though we watch her have a glass of wine while she's holding her baby. I would have been like, I haven't been drinking that much, new baby. It hit me fast and blah, blah, blah. She could have run that way. She missed a hole out there. That early in the night. And basically they end up, she's like, I ran you off. I came at you way too hard. I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. And she had it was a good apology. Nia then in the interview was like, I don't know how genuine it is. And she's like, I deserved it when you told me to fuck off. And Nia's like, you can see that was the key thing. Like, if you want to get in there with me, you go, you told me to fuck off. And she's like, but I deserved it. Janet's like, I deserved it when you sold. And she's like, yes, well, I am very sorry that I said that. I was feeling very emotional, but I wish I hadn't done that. And they decide to kind of call a truce. It's not even like, I think anyone really trusts the other one. I think they're all just like, I have to be here with you doing these group things together, and I'm not going to ruin everyone else's time by being mad at you the whole time, so let's just move on. Is kind of the vibe I got. And Janet and Jason, I think it was Jason that goes, and I also appreciate that you didn't disinvite us to this trip that you've planned when we weren't on good terms. And Nia goes, oh, I would never do that. Which is so funny because she literally goes, if it was our thing, when she was at the lunch with Benji and Zach, she's like, I wouldn't invite them if we didn't have to. She's like, oh, we would never do that. Well, yeah. Yes, you would have. You already said. But Janet's like, I wouldn't have invited you. Like, if I would have kicked you out. Because, yeah, we remember last year, it was her baby moon, which, God, I wish I had had a baby moon. It's her baby moon. She didn't invite Kristen and Zach because she wasn't cool. So, and then Zach is the one that invited her. The whole thing is so confusing. But anyway, they've decided to squash it, which, thank God, we can at least move forward a teeny tiny bit for a little bit. Maybe we can pretend. Then they skip to Jesse just having feelings about Aaron being there, which I can kind of get, but also you're traveling with your ex. So it's going to be a weird thing that's going to happen. And he feels like, and I'm wondering what your opinion on this is, he feels like Aaron owed him a call where he's like, hey, I'm seeing your wife. Not that he has to do that, but that he would at least say, like, what are your boundaries since I'm going to be spending time with your daughter? I don't think that's Aaron's job. I think that is Michelle's job.
Yeah. Yep. Agree. Yep. I agree. I agree with that. I agree with that. And I disagreed with the whole Father's Day upsetting picture thing. I mean, I wouldn't be so upset if my daughter was taking pictures with my ex's, new wife or girlfriend on Mother's Day and posting it. If she is with them on Mother's Day and taking pictures, it's fine. I would not get, I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't upset about it.
I think I would be pissed. But I'm petty. I
mean, did Aaron post it and say Happy Father's Day to me? If he's doing something like that, yeah, then don't do that. You're not her father.
I didn't think it crossed a line.
It's not, you don't do that. Happy Father's Day to me. If Michelle is posting it, Michelle can post it.
It's Michelle's deal. Yeah. It's
whatever. But I don't.
And it seems like he's actively trying to be supportive and kind to this little girl.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think if you have any issues, you have to have the issue with Michelle. You don't have it with Aaron.
Yeah.
Is how I feel about it. Ah, Jesus Christ. I just keep karate chopping myself. And then we see... We'll just skip ahead really quick. The sneak preview. I thought we were getting it this episode. This happens every time. They trick me every time.
I know.
We're going to see the confrontation where Jesse is direct with Aaron and goes, were you ever crossing a line with my wife, physical or emotional, while we were married, before we were separated? Mm-hmm. And Aaron, they are just cutting to him, and I think it's just amazing editing. I'm not even mad at it, because one, Aaron has big eyeballs that stick out of his head a little bit. So he always looks a little bit surprised and concerned. I think that's just his face. Mm-hmm. Also, there's one part where he's clearly burping and he's swallowing the burp, where he's like... But he's got a really intense neck, so the whole thing is moving around and it looks like he's swallowing, but he's clearly burping. And then... And then you also see him, just feeling stressed. Looking stressed, but I think that's just his face. Mm-hmm. And what does he get... If it was true, why does it matter? What does Jesse need to know? Right.
It's not going to undo their divorce. It's not going to undo anything. What's the purpose? What purpose does it serve right now? What are you going to get out of it?
He's going to say no, nothing happened, and Jesse's not going to believe him. Yep. Or he would say, yes, it did happen. It doesn't change their divorce. No. It's a no-fault state. Yep. No-fault state in California. So it doesn't change their divorce either. Yep. Get over it. That's his dark passenger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Exactly.
And then also we
loved that everybody stood in the back. Everybody waited. They're like, okay, I think we need to wait and make sure everything's okay. Did you see that?
No, I'm excited though.
They got up from the table and they all stood in the back and watched. I thought that was so funny.
I would do that. Well, because it's is this going to get physical? Mm-hmm. I'm curious how many drinks Jesse's had. Because Vacation Jesse is drunk Jesse. Yeah. But no one's upset at Jesse for drinking.
Yeah. Right.
Even though he's ridiculous when he's drinking.
Right.
Well, because he's very open about his drinking.
Well, how is that any different? Stop it.
You're allowed to get blackout drunk if everyone saw you drink all your drinks.
Or if you say it, I'm going to have 17 drinks.
Yeah, I'm getting blackout drunk. I'm having 3 bottles of champagne before 10 a.m.
Okay.
That's what you're allowed to do.
All right.
So, and then I think the end is we see Luke just stressed. Yeah. I feel so badly for Luke because it is a lot happening all at once. Mm-hmm. So he's the day before he spent time with his grandmother who's dying, and he's also about ready to propose. And it's this entire trip has this massive orchestrated surprise for Kristen. Yeah. And he's just trying to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks, which it almost did. by the way, I forgot to mention this at the Mexican restaurant where Jasmine's like, Zach told me there's a surprise. And she's like saying it to Kristen because she's like, what's the surprise, Kristen? Because you and Zach share everything. And Kristen's like, there's a surprise? And Nia's like, shut up. Shook face. I can't believe that Kristen missed that.
Yeah.
But she clearly did because I think she was just ready to fight Janet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all fine.
That was awesome.
She was too distracted by Janet.
Mm-hmm.
So actually we should be thanking Janet. No.
No, never.
Ugh.
No, never.
No, never. But next week I'm just excited to see Aaron in his bug eyes.
Oh my gosh.
Stress.
Yeah.
And how is Jax going to handle not being there with them? What unhinged shit is he going to pull while they're across the ocean?
Yeah, well, that's what Brittany said, that Cruz was at home and Jax was going to go over and see him, right, while they were gone.
I guess so.
I think is what she said.
I would be like a little bit stressed about leaving my cruise, right? But she's gotta do what the show's doing, so. All right. Are you ready for True Crime Story Time?
Yeah.
We talked about this last week, getting into this one. I love a follow-up. I love an update.
Well, yeah. I mean, we didn't know that we were gonna get any of this info.
No, and it's interesting. It's very interesting. All right, so jump right in.
Right. So on Peacock released the Gilgo Beach some updates where we get to hear from Rex Heuerman's family, both his wife and his daughter. I think we hear a little bit from his son, but I think his son maybe suffer from
delays.
Some delays. Yeah. I think at one point in one of the episodes, someone said maybe he was deaf. Did you catch that?
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure there.
I'm not sure.
And it's technically his stepson, so.
Right. It's not his, it doesn't matter. Go ahead.
Anyways, the episode 1, they named it Monster Among Us, and it's really, episode 1 is just an outline of the story of the Gilgo Beach murders, right? They just go over the whole outline. I won't belittle the whole thing.
Speed raced through it too. First, when that first started, I thought that they were doing like a quick introduction because it was going so fast. But they did the entire 3-part series that we watched on HBO, they ran through it.
Yeah.
In 55 minutes. I was like, oh, that's a lot of information.
Yeah. Yeah. So if just for a couple sentences, just if nobody knows what's going on, I will say, just to tell you, so December 2010, in Long Island along Ocean Park Way near Gilgo Beach, they find 4 bodies that they named the Gilgo 4 that were found, that turns into, a serial killer case. And then after years and years of controversy with guns and sex workers, the Suffolk County Police Chief is arrested. He serves prison sentence, and the case gets stalled for almost a decade. After 13 years, they finally have a suspect under arrest in connection with those 4 bodies, and his name is Rex Heuerman, and he has a wife and 2 kids. His wife is named Asa, his daughter's named Victoria, and his stepson is named Christoper. So this spans from 2010, technically, to now, 2025. So that is really a really condensed version of what is happening. But then they just go back over a lot of the story, of the retelling of the story, that I wrote down a couple of things that I don't remember ever hearing before that I wanted to ask you about to see if you had picked up on a couple of things, or if you had written down some things that maybe I didn't pick up on. But I don't remember. I mean, I'll back up just for a minute. The prosecutors believe that Rex had murdered all of these women in their family home and then dumped them on the beach. So that's basically how all this works. But in the retelling, one of the differences I wrote down is I don't remember hearing that there was a canine police unit that was training that found the bodies initially. Do you remember hearing that?
No.
Okay, I don't remember hearing that part. So that was one of the differences. In December, in 2010, it's freezing cold outside. They're just training these canine dogs. And the dog sniffs on this dead body. And they end up digging up 4 bodies subsequently. Okay, so that was one of the differences that we didn't initially hear about. And then the other one I wrote down was one of the 4 women was bound only in belts, and I don't remember hearing that either.
I remember that about a belt.
Yes.
But I didn't remember about it was burlap sack.
Yes. That's all that they said.
The other ones.
Yeah.
And then one of them was found with a belt.
Yes.
I remember that, but not that was all that she was found with.
Yes. So I didn't know that either. And then the other thing was all of these women were under 5'5". I didn't know that they were all
that either.
Very small and very petite women.
So tiny.
Yes. Which really has nothing to do with anything. But, I mean, it's just interesting fact, I thought. Well,
a couple of the other things that I thought were interesting. Yeah. There was also, they linked him to the murder of, I can't remember his name, but an Asian man who...
Yes.
Then you find out in this one he was dressed as a woman and had been picked up probably as a woman. And they go into more detail about his Google searches.
Yeah.
That I think maybe they just didn't have it during the HBO documentary. They didn't have all that info yet. But then also the part that I thought was wild, remember the redheaded guy who had been roommates with one of the victims? And he's the one that was he drives this kind of truck. He looks like a giant ogre. Mm-hmm. So in the HBO one, they didn't talk about the fact that he and his roommate, who becomes one of the victims, they set it up as he wasn't there.
Yeah.
And she was hiding in a bathroom because her John was freaking her out. And he and his friend came and beat the shit out of Rex Heuerman, and then he left.
Yeah.
And then they've seen him, they can identify him. And in this documentary on Peacock, they were like, well, she was running this thing with her roommate where she would have a John come over. She would set it up through Craigslist. And then as things started to happen, she would text her roommate, and her roommate would come in and pretend to be a jealous boyfriend. She had already gotten paid, and then that would chase the guy off, and then she didn't actually have to do anything.
Yeah.
And that was a scam that they were running.
Yeah.
Either way, not even mad about it.
Yeah. But they only did it with him. Because
they did it with a bunch of people.
I wrote down that they only did it with him.
They had been doing it for a while, is what I thought. But they did it to Rex, and it went awry. Mm-hmm. Because usually after they would do that, the guy would disappear, but Rex kept calling her and kept setting up again, where usually they'd never hear from the guy again, John again.
Yeah.
So that was why it was different than normal.
Yeah. They did talk about Long Island having this quote-unquote rich history of serial killer history, and I thought about you. And you getting a lot of serial killer stories when you were little. So they had, the Amityville horror serial killer Ronald DeFeo Jr. Do you know that one?
No, I didn't know that one.
So that was a horror movie that ended up being, there's a lot of different movies that have been made by that story. He gunned down all 6 members of his family in their home while they slept. He claimed that he heard either Satan or a demon tell him to do it.
I didn't know that it was a true story.
Yeah, that is a true story.
I didn't realize it was a real thing that happened.
Yeah, that's a true story. One of the adaptations has Ryan Reynolds in playing the dad. So anyway, it's very good. It's one of my favorites. Anyway, so I think he was just high on meth. I don't know if he actually was listening to Satan. That was so he was arrested in 1974 for murdering his family. The next one was Joel Rifkin. Have you ever heard of that name? So this guy, he was arrested in 1993. And so I just wanted to read just a little bit about him. Joel Rifkin, he would dismember bodies, removing the teeth and the fingertips and their head, and cut their legs off, disposing them on golf courses. He would put them all over Long Island. He ended up killing 16 women. He was a gem.
Was he the guy that was putting them in, like, specific positions, like posing them?
Let's see.
They just mentioned one of those, and I was like, oh.
This lovely gentleman. Let's see. You're putting her head in a paint can, which he left in the woods on a golf course. This part's really sad. So Joel Rifkin picked up a prostitute named Tiffany with her pimp boyfriend, Dave, told the pimp, Dave, I'll bring her right back, and killed Tiffany, never brought her back, and Dave felt so bad he ended up committing suicide after the whole thing, because he was so devastated that he didn't protect her. This Joel Rifkin guy was apparently, I think, a landscaper, so that's why he did a lot of this stuff on golf courses. So that guy was a gem. The next guy they talked about was Robert Schulman. I think this might be the one you're talking about. He was arrested in 1996. This lovely person, he liked to beat women with barbells, hammers, baseball bats, dismember their bodies in the bathroom, seal them in garbage bags, and dump them in various neighborhoods. He would cut off their hands. Yeah, so he was fun. And then they had the last one was John Bitroff, but this guy was the one that was linked to Rex Heuerman with the other two last women, Sandra Castilla, and I can't remember the other girl, because they thought...
The Atlantic City one?
Right. They thought that he had killed her instead of Rex, but it ended up being Rex anyway. So they talked about... And I didn't know that all those people were in Long Island. Anyway, I thought that was interesting too. But they talked about all this cell phone information too that they never talked about in the HBO documentary about, like, Maureen Brainerd Barnes. She disappeared in July of 2007, and she got calls before she went missing, which I don't understand that.
Because he was setting it up.
Yeah.
I mean, like, organizing these things. Yeah. Yes.
And then after she went missing, they tracked her cell phone that was moving all around. Mm-hmm. Then the other victim, Melissa Bartholomew, she was getting calls a week before she disappeared. And then after she disappeared, her phone was being tracked from apparently his house that we know, back to Manhattan, back to his house. We never knew any of that, too.
No. And when did true crime really take off? The Adnan case? And half of that case is cell phone data.
Yeah, right.
Cell phone towers. So
unbelievable.
They were pretty thorough in this documentary, considering how little time they spent on, like, the investigations part of it. Yeah. They were very thorough in the cell phone case part of it.
Yeah. The other thing we didn't get to know is when they were following Rex, when they knew it was him and they were trying to get his DNA, is they posed as sanitation workers in front of his house. We didn't know that either, trying to pick up his garbage to get his fingerprints and DNA off of his garbage.
And outside his office?
Yeah.
The DNA they finally got was a piece of pizza, and the bag had, like, nothing in it.
Yeah.
So they probably had somebody pretending to change the bag out there for hours.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Because that was a fresh bag. It was like his box and the pizza and a drink. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they got his DNA off a piece of pizza.
I mean, no wonder it took them a year to get DNA. I mean, that oh my God, it took forever.
How expensive that case. Investigating that case must have been.
Yeah, so that was episode 1, basically, in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
Those were the differences that I wrote down. Did you write anything else besides those? Or can you think of anything?
Not for episode 1. I mean, the thing that stood out the most to me was the guy that was the roommate.
Mm-hmm. I wrote that down too.
And then
episode 2 was called House of Secrets. And this is where we get to listen to the wife and the daughter talk. So it's very interesting. Steve watched these with me, and I really liked that too, because he and I had lots of conversations while we watched it.
Matt watched it with me because he didn't watch the original Gilgo.
Yeah, Steve
but then
didn't
I was watching, I got towards the end, and it was the end where like they wouldn't show his face.
Yeah.
And that's like, I need to see this ogre. I need to see him. And then like, I know what he looks like. But Matt was like, the reveal for Matt was huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a lot of, the producers and everybody kept saying to Asa, who is his wife, how could you not have known? How could you not have known this is what he was doing? And she is very adamant. She's very, known what? What do you mean? Known what?
Yeah.
He would come home. He would go to work. He's a family man. He would come home. He would eat dinner. I don't understand. What do you mean?
She didn't believe it.
Yeah.
This is just to loop it back to the valley.
Yeah.
I can loop everything back to the valley. She's very like, Brittany now, the veil has lifted, where she's like seeing all the awfulness that is Jax. Asa is like, are you saying she doesn't believe that he saw a prostitute? She's like, when?
No.
Are you saying he would come home and he'd have sex with me, he'd eat my dinner?
Yep.
You're saying I'm not a good cook? Like, I'm a great wife.
Right.
She took it as like a personal attack.
Yes.
On her as a wife, that they would say that he did these things.
Yes. It was very interesting.
I don't know. She doesn't seem like an unintelligent woman.
No. Not at all. I think
she is in such denial as they're interviewing her. Just this deep, deep denial.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reporters, which was beautifully stated, she said, everybody keeps saying, how could she not have known? How could she not have known? Men, the reporter said, men have affairs for years and years and years on their wives, and they don't know it. They have no idea they're cheating on their wives. And Rex Heuerman basically had an affair as a serial killer. And that was a perfect sentence. Mm-hmm. Because that's exactly how you would explain this. She had no idea. All she saw, she knew him as her husband and a father and a family man. And I wrote down two things can be true at the same time.
Right.
Completely. I mean, and she doesn't know him, obviously, as this horrific person. She doesn't know him as this person looking up these horrible things online. She doesn't know him as this person looking up these videos and these pictures that they found. Why would she? Why would she know that person?
Well, and she even says, she's like, there's no way he would have done that because he never said I couldn't go on his computer.
Right.
I could have looked at any time, but she never did.
Right.
And like,
she has no reason to, though.
Right.
There's no reason to.
She had no...
Right.
It didn't occur to her.
Yeah.
I don't know. As I'm watching this.
Yes.
You sit there and you're like, how she genuinely, it doesn't seem real to her. And it kind of freaks you out. And you're like, how well do you know anyone? Like,
absolutely.
He had his family like completely.
Absolutely.
Fooled. Like, it never would have occurred to them that they would do these things. I know that Matt doesn't have time because he and I both work from home together.
I thought you were going to say something else.
What did you think I was going to say?
Something dirty.
I just know that Matt literally couldn't. But then I don't know. I was watching this and I was like, looking at him. What are you doing? But again, I have full access to his phone.
Mm-hmm.
I can see what he's doing because his computer is facing me at all.
Yeah.
Just simply out of like, that's how the office was set up.
Yeah.
But it's unnerving to think, like, she literally cannot accept it to the point she cannot wrap her mind around the fact that he could have done those things.
No.
Because that's not who she knows him as.
No. She doesn't. I mean, they talk about the day he was arrested and the first raid, which is the same day, right? The daughter works as a receptionist for him. And she leaves work and says, I'll see you at home, right? He gets arrested and they're all waiting for him to come home. And they raid the house at, 11 o'clock at night, which I don't understand. But
do you think it was to not necessarily let the neighbors know totally what was going on?
I mean, I guess I could see that.
I think that was the only thing I could think is that they didn't want to. I mean, it's this fiasco.
Sure.
And I think all the news footage of it is in the morning. Yeah. And it's like, I think maybe they wanted to get as much done under the cover of nightfall.
Yeah, that's true.
That was my guess.
That's true. I mean, when they said, right, they kicked in their door, they say, do you know why we're here? And they said, well, we thought maybe it has to do with his guns. Maybe it was the IRS or the Department of Labor. I was like, what is that? What do you mean? Yeah. What is he doing? What is he doing at work?
I know, and they never elaborate on that.
They never said anything about that. And so then the daughter says, the investigators or task force ask, has your dad ever touched you inappropriately? And she's like, no, he's never done anything to me like that. And then they tell Asa, right, do you know anything about the Gilgo Beach murders? We believe your husband is soliciting sex workers and killing them and dumping them. And she's like, absolutely not. That's not him. And so she said they drove us to a hotel and they have a cop on us 24/7 and they're keeping an eye on us. And we're just sitting there watching the news, watching them tear apart my house, pulling bags and bags of things out of my house. I mean, this poor family is going to have therapy their whole life. I can't even. Oh God. I don't.
My heart just broke for all of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you can see Asa she's so frustrated and so angry. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Mm-hmm. And you can, the daughter Victoria, so confused by all of it. Mm-hmm. She just looks like she is in, they say like fight, flight, or freeze. Yeah. She just looks like she's in freeze at all times.
Yeah.
She can't, this is blowing her mind.
Yeah. And this is the first time we get to see inside the house, which I am so sad to say, but it looks like an episode of Hoarders. And there are boxes everywhere. And this does not look like leftovers from the raid. I really think these people live like that.
Well, they had said going in, there were boxes.
Yes.
And that everything was kind of in a state of disorder.
Yes.
And that the house had not been kept up with. Mm-hmm. And you can see on the outside of the outside of the house isn't great. Mm. But then they also talked about, I don't remember, we can cut this out if it's episode 3. They had also talked about he had redone a bathroom one of the times that he was being...
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I just saw a gecko eat a
nice.
bug. It's very cool. Because there's windows and I see his belly. Okay, so he had redone a bathroom one of the times that his family was out of town. Mm-hmm. And it did look nice. And they had cut out a bunch of stuff because they were checking for trace.
Yeah.
But then their bathroom is destroyed. And it was how bad for Asa because she had just gotten her bathroom redone. And now it's destroyed.
Yes, so they're walking us through the house. She has no bathroom door. Right, she has no bathroom sink. Part of the tub has been ripped off. Part of the floor is gone. Part of the floor is gone. And their poor daughter says, they should have deemed this house inhabitable. And a lot of the reporters are saying, they should have fixed this house before they let them go back in. Other people are saying, these aren't victims. This family is not a victim like the other families are victims. And it's very hard to go back and forth and think about, are they victims? Are they not victims? It's, you feel bad for them because he has ruined his family's life also by what he's done.
Yes.
It's this horrible trickle-down effect that he's completely ruined their lives as well.
Are they still alive? Yes. But their lives are destroyed. I do think that his family are victims. I think it's worth acknowledging that their lives are completely upended by this.
Absolutely.
And if Asa really didn't know, and it seems like she really had no fucking clue, then how is she not a victim of...
Right. Agreed.
She's not a murder victim.
Of course.
But there's clearly the deception is so massive.
Yeah.
I think that she is a victim. I don't think that she is a murder victim. I don't think that her family is the same as the murder victims' families, obviously.
Yeah.
But in a sense, the person they thought this man was is gone.
Yeah.
And that's terrifying.
Yeah.
So at least they should have some sort of therapy or something.
I know. One part was really interesting where he calls from the jail. He calls her and they have this kind of benign phone conversation and they're just, how are you? I'm fine. How are you?
What did you eat?
What did you eat? Are you coming to see me on Friday? Yes, of course. I'll talk to you later. And they hang up and she says, Asa says I talk to him all the time, but he only has a certain, amount of time, which I think it's like he can only call on a certain day probably, or make calls on certain times at a certain day. And then she says, I don't want to make him feel uncomfortable or I don't want to hurt him by saying, I love you. And I don't know. I didn't understand that. I was confused about that.
Well, I think she's trying to keep I think what she's trying to say is that she was trying to keep the conversation benign because it's the second that you acknowledge how intense the situation is.
Yeah.
And how serious everything is.
Yeah.
If you have to confront that, that's too much.
Yeah. Yeah. Victoria, the daughter, talks about, when all of this was going on, she was 10, 12, 13 years old. She was just...
The murder.
Yes. She was just a child. Now she's in her 20s. And she feels like people in some way blame her or like she should have known when she was a child.
Yeah.
Somehow. And I don't understand that. I wouldn't expect a child to know. I don't understand if the public expects a child to know. She thinks the public expects her to know.
I'm sure she's gotten awful responses on from the internet and in the news and things like that. Because, I'm sitting here going, how did you not know? Well, she was 12. I think that's the other thing is throwing it all into context. They've been investigating. They investigated for what? It was like 13 years.
Right.
Before they had a real break in that case that they were able to follow up on because of the corruption that was in that police department.
Yeah.
They didn't talk as much about the corruption in the police department in this one, which again, I don't think they had the time to, whereas they devoted basically an entire episode in the HBO one to the police corruption.
Right.
I thought it was very interesting that the daughter was like, I thought it was very interesting that the daughter also was like, I don't think so. Show me some proof.
Yes. They both said that they wanted Rex to tell them that he did it. And I kept telling Steve while we were watching, all I can think about is the BTK killer. He loved his family. He was a very big family man and he took care of his daughter. He took care of his wife. He was a GD Eagle Scout. The man was this upstanding citizen in this community. His daughter felt like he loved her and he did. And he stood up in court and said, I did X, Y, and Z to these women and that was the only time that his family believed that he committed these murders. And that's basically what Asa and Victoria said, that they
need that.
They need that. And I can completely understand that because they don't know him any other way.
Right.
But a lot of people keep saying, how could this man do this? How could this man do it? This doesn't make sense because he's a family man and he goes to work and he can keep a job and he can pay bills and he does all of the, I mean, there are people out there that can do that. I mean, just like I said, that BTK killer, we have had these serial killers out there that do this and have been prolific for years and years and years. So it's not uncommon.
Well, but I think it is, they were saying it's a little bit uncommon for him to be so successful professionally and also have this happening at the same time. There's a lot of these killers, a lot of these guys that are doing this stuff with prostitutes and so violent with these women. Usually it's because they are seeking out a power dynamic somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Which would totally make sense because he's, what was he, like 6'4"?
Yeah.
Something ridiculous. I think he might have been taller than that. Something ridiculous. 6 something. Like significantly, I remember, maybe it was 6'7". Doesn't matter. So he's over 6 foot and he's picking these women that are under 5.5 feet tall.
Yeah.
Like he wants to be domineering, but it's not coming from not having a good home life. Like the family, the kids are going on vacations. Victoria's like, yeah, my dad built me this incredible dollhouse.
Mm-hmm.
How great was, I mean, this beautiful thing.
Yeah.
They're going on vacations. They're flying back to Iceland, which is where Asa is from originally. Victoria's going to summer camps. Mm-hmm. They had like a good, healthy home life, it seemed like.
Yeah.
At least that, and the house seemed like a mess. Even before the police got in there.
Yeah.
But it seemed like there was like a healthy something going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, and professionally, although again, the IRS,
I know,
the Labor Department.
I know. Weird.
I'm curious. I'm so curious about that part.
I know.
But he's getting interviewed for things for his architecture and he seemed happy with his job.
Yeah. But back inside the house, downstairs in the basement, we get to see that in his gun room, he had, they pulled out almost 300 guns from this gun room. But the gun room had a steel door on
like
it.
A vault.
Yeah.
Like a vault door.
Like you see on movies with that star-shaped, handle, like on a bank. With a combination, which was super interesting. Why do you have that? Well,
because that was kind of being explained as like the kill room probably. Mm-hmm. And his family wasn't allowed in there.
Yeah.
Then he had another closet that had like a secret door to it.
There was a walk-in closet inside that gun room.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it was secret. Mm-hmm. And no one went in there.
Mm-hmm.
But they were like, yeah, it's whatever. We weren't really allowed to be in the gun room, but we've shot, it was whatever. We've seen it. I've gone into it. It wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
And Asa's like, the door has, if you are inside the vault door, there is a lever so that you will never get locked in.
Yeah.
That's not how that would have worked. So no, he wasn't locking girls in there. They would go like this and get out.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe.
But Asa explained that the secret walk-in closet inside the gun room, Rex put a safe in there. For some reason, he had this secret room for this safe that he didn't want people to find. Why do you have
so many secrets?
A reason for people not to find this safe? I don't understand. That was weird, too. I don't know. Anyway, so we find out that Asa has officially divorced Rex so that Rex could give her all the assets so that she could keep the home, right? But they're still a family, right? They act as...
It doesn't really mean anything. The son was like, he was explaining it. The son was explaining it. Mm-hmm. He's like, it doesn't mean anything. We're still a family. And you're like, oh.
Yes. And then they go over the How I Met Your Mother thing. Asa explained, I moved into this house in 1995, But she said, I met Rex when I was 18. I was going to college. I was working at 7-Eleven, and I was born in Iceland. My younger brother was adopted to an Icelandic family, and I was adopted to an American family. But I would travel back to Iceland with my family to visit. She said Rex would travel a lot and went on archaeological digs. Those pictures were weird that they were showing of him when he was younger.
Well, because they were digging up bodies.
I know.
It's literally him taking a picture of his skull and then him pretending to do a sacrifice on someone.
It was
and you're
just, what are we watching?
That's some foreshadowing. Although, let's be honest.
Yeah.
I'd take that photo too.
But she explains that she gets married to her first husband and has Christoper, so her son, with her first husband. And, it doesn't go well. So she's trying to get a divorce, and Rex helps her get a divorce from her first husband and finally gets the divorce from Christoper's dad. And
Rex helped her do that.
Mm-hmm.
She had already been friends with Rex.
Yep.
And he was the kind of person that you could just call just to talk to. He was just a kind, caring guy.
Yep.
And then when one of the times she went to go pick up Christoper from her ex-husband, and he was awful to her, and Rex got out, and I'm sure Rex, this tall ogre of a man, gets out and was like, we're going to get you a lawyer. He paid for her lawyer to get to the divorce.
Yeah.
And then he's seeing her struggle, and he's like, I've got a whole house.
Yeah.
Do you want to come move in with me?
Yeah.
And then she got pregnant and they got married.
Oopsie. Yep. So that's how they got together. It was very cute. And then we see her go to court for the first time, which was insanity. Completely insanity. I mean, the press was more interested, right, in her showing up than seeing him in court. And I can't imagine what that would feel like. They're just shouting at her to have her make a comment or a statement. She just wants to walk in to see her husband. She goes in for this little brief hearing. They make little eye contact with each other. They come out from the hearing. And so, after that, let's see. Is this where she goes to her attorney? Let's see.
Can I pause you for 2 seconds? Yeah. I need to go to the bathroom.
Oh my gosh.
I will be right back. I'm so sorry.
You're going to cut this out? She went to the bathroom. We're not done.
Would you like a JoJo potato wipe?
Sorry. I really had to pee. I was trying to hold it and I couldn't. I don't know if you saw me wiggling so much. Okay. And all of that was my stomach making gurgly sounds, but I think it's because I'm hungry. That wasn't me farting. I was in the bathroom and I was like, I bet she thinks I'm having diarrhea. That's not what this is. There's all my intrusive thoughts. I'm sorry. Okay. So we had just talked about her going to the courthouse.
Okay. Yes, so she comes out of the hearing, and we see her go into her attorney's office, and she tells her attorney, she's like, you're going to tell me that they say he has killed all of these women while we were on vacation. That's what you're going to tell me.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just kind of, nodding his head and looking at her, and she just goes over these time periods, right, where they were on vacation. And she's like, I just don't believe it. I just don't believe that he could have done all of these things while we were on vacation. It just doesn't make sense. So he
called me.
Yeah.
We had a phone call.
Yeah.
The denial is so intense.
Yeah.
She's literally laying out the timeline.
I know.
And it's like, that makes, I feel like sometimes, have you ever had a situation where when you actually say it out loud, it suddenly clicks?
Yeah.
I once was telling Dad and Matt a story about this dog that I had with my mom, because my dad and mom are divorced. And this dog had gotten really old, and my grandfather worked at an assisted living facility next to Albertsons, and my grandpa worked there. And so I would go and hang out with him while he was at work, and I knew some of the people there. And then this one guy who I really liked, the dog left, and they were like, we actually sent the dog to go live with Jim on his farm. Jim moved back to his farm, and he needed a dog, so we sent the dog with him. And I was like, oh, I guess that's nice. And I was explaining that story to Matt and my dad as an adult.
And you're like,
and I went, they went to the farm to get, holy fucking shit. But it's saying it out loud and putting it together. You go, oh my God. She's saying out loud and going, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
This thing that I just laid out in a linear fashion. And you're saying that's when he did this, and this is the time that he did it within that time frame? Impossible.
Yeah.
She doesn't hear it.
Yeah. I mean, when she is saying, when she's in Iceland for 5 weeks, literally the whole week when Maureen Brainerd Barnes is killed in July of 2009, she's saying that's when he was remodeling the bathroom. And she's like, I have all these receipts from Home Depot. I mean, he's telling me he's remodeling the bathroom. He retiled, he got a new bathtub, and then he called me and he got on a flight. She's like, I don't understand. Why would he rip up my bathroom? He doesn't have time. I don't understand what you're telling. He couldn't have done any of that stuff.
Refinish the bathroom while also murdering someone.
Right.
It's impossible.
Right. And we all hear it while she's talking. We hear it.
It is true, though. I know for a fact that Matt likes it when I have something else to do on the weekend, because that's when he can get the other projects done. I went and got my nails done with my sister on Saturday. And when I came back, he had dismantled the shed. Yeah. But I had the proof that he had dismantled the shed. Yeah. Did he also murder a prostitute? I don't know.
Right.
I don't think so.
No. But
I left him with a van, so maybe we'll have to find out.
I mean, there's that timeline, so we still have that. It's there. I don't
timeline.
Right, exactly. I mean, she goes over that with 3 of the victims. They talk about a Six Flags vacation. They talk about the DNA.
And Victoria's like, Dad couldn't have come. He gets sick. He's got really bad motion sickness. Oh, poor Victoria.
I know. When they finally get the DNA back from the hairs that they didn't have into the DNA testing from 2009 on one of the girls, and they find out that the DNA, one of the hairs is Rex. 3 of the hairs is from Asa, and 1 of the hairs is from Victoria, right? The producers are asking Victoria, how is it a coincidence? What do you feel that your hair is on one of the victims, right? And she's just like, I don't.
She goes, it's circumstantial.
I don't. And
and I thought of you when she said that.
Right.
What is it about circumstantial evidence?
It still has the word evidence in it. Yes, it's still evidence. It's so hard for her. I just feel so bad for them. It's so difficult for them to wrap their head around. Like I said, 2 things can be true at the same time. So Victoria goes to court with her mom at one point, and she sees, all the press there, and they get all squirrely with her too. She gets really upset, right, about it. She feels humiliated. She feels like it's a walk of shame. I have no idea what that must feel like. It's like she has done something wrong, which of course none of them have done anything wrong. And then their attorney shows her, Victoria, a picture that the task force has taken while they were following her to try and get her DNA, right, that we hadn't seen before, while she was on a train. And,
it's on her way home from work.
Yeah, she feels really victimized about that.
I mean, how uncomfortable. You had no idea that you were being followed for who knows how long.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, it's because there's a man who has victimized, tortured, murdered these women and their families and these women deserve justice.
Yeah.
And so while that's uncomfortable for Victoria, and I think that that's fair to acknowledge, there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
And it sucks,
yeah.
but it has to be done.
I know. They talk about, again, after his arrest, they have more than 400 devices that they pull out of his home and his office. What person on this earth has phones, hard drives, laptops, and tablets? 400? What?
400.
What are you? What? I can't.
The only thing that I could come up with that could possibly explain that insane number.
Yeah.
Is, does he have all of these hard drives for work things? Like, does he have them for buildings? Does he have them, like, maybe he has a hard drive or like a thumb drive for each one of his clients or jobs or something? Like, that number feels insane. But also, he has around 300 guns.
Yeah. 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 I know. And he said he was, collecting guns since he was 18, and he's 59 now. So I guess that kind of tracks. But, when they look on these devices, they have all of these things dating back to 1994, right? And so there's just so much. It's so much to wrap my head around for one.
So he was doing this stuff. I mean, we already know there's probably stuff beyond the Gilgo Beach. He's probably been doing it a lot longer.
Yeah.
1994. That was when internet was coming on a CD from right? Like
floppy disk maybe or something. Yeah.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. So they find horrific things on these 400 devices, which I still can't wrap my head around. But then they do a second raid on their home on these poor people. With all of that, they charge him with, like I said, that murder of that Sandra Castilla from 1993, which I would assume is some sort of DNA or something with her, and Jessica Taylor from 2011. And they just keep saying, they're looking in Nevada and they're looking in South Carolina and they're looking in all of these other states across the United States to see if he's connected with other murders, because they're just not sure. They're just not sure what this man has done. And it's almost never ending. Yeah, but this poor family.
And I'm wondering if he's going to be like the guy from the UK that we talked about before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where he killed himself so they would never know all of the things
that he'd done.
And
That's
know
so
that there's more.
That's so true.
There's got to be more than what they were able to figure out. What else is he connected to? How many years he been doing that? Mm-hmm. They kind of infer that he had probably started doing something before he met Asa.
Yeah.
Even.
Yeah.
Or before he married Asa, at least.
Yeah. And they talk about why, maybe, is there a reason why he chose her? What kind of person? Maybe he could manipulate her. Like maybe she wouldn't question anything he would do. Or, if he was away, or if she was away for long periods of time, he knew she would be away for long periods of time. Those kind of things.
She had also thought, she described when they got married as she got him. She felt like she got him.
Yeah.
And she was so happy to have snagged that man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he seemed just like a genuine, like caring, like really taking care of her and protecting her and providing for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll talk about episode 3 next week. But like I said, episode 3, when I brought up the BTK killer, episode 3 has his daughter comes and talks to them, which is very interesting. And I really liked that to see. She just talks to Asa and Victoria to kind of feel the waters out and see where they're at and maybe tell them that they're not alone.
I mean, but how rare.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you, there's the support group.
Yeah, right?
For daughters of serial killer fathers.
Yeah. Yep.
That are blindsided by it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean.
Yeah.
It's a 2.
Yep. Yeah.
But,
so.
Yeah, it's super good. I'm excited to talk more about it next week. And we've also got some more Love Island. Tonight is the only night. No Love Island tonight.
Oh.
I know. So I guess I'm just gonna have to. Well, I'm gonna start watching the LA version of it, where it's last season's people. Are you gonna watch that?
Yes, of course.
So I think that's what I'm gonna watch tonight.
Absolutely. I can't wait. Together.
I really, really missed Janae, so I'm excited to see her again.
And Kayler, hello.
Kayler, fuck. I'm so excited to see her. So one of the things that you said that I forgot to mention about the Valley, when they were having the men's group, when you were talking about the murderer, you were like, they were squirrely. They start talking about how you feel squirrely. Yeah. And you feel like you're doing something in a shady way. And I don't remember if it was Danny. I think it was Danny. He was like, can someone define squirrely to me? What you mean by that? And then Jesse's like, you're married. You know what squirrely means. Right. And so I turned to Matt and I was like, what do you feel squirrely about? And we kind of had to think about it for a second. It was like, what are we squirrely about? And I was like, oh, I know that Matt feels squirrely and like you kind of have to hide something, or like you're not comfortable like being totally open with your spouse. And it's like, Matt feels that way when he gets on eBay and buys another new dumb toy. But I always find out about it. Like, he'll tell me before it arrives. He was like, what? There was a new line of toys that just came out and they were from Strawberry Shortcake. And he was like, what is the one that Keeley loves? And I was like, it's the Blueberry Muffin. And he was like, that's one of they only did 3 characters and Blueberry Muffin is one of us. So never mind. Aww. And I was like, what? And he was like, I did buy a different one though. Aww. And then he shows me this like my monster thing. And he's like, I don't know why I bought this. He's like, but I just bought this. And I was like, I don't care. Do what you want to do. And I was like, I feel squirrely. The things I feel squirrely about are, I brought another foster kitten home. Oops. I feel squirrely about that. And then I also feel squirrely about when I offer to do favors for people during our downtime. So I will be taking care of my, it's really minor. I'm going to be picking up my stepsister's dog from the boarding place and taking it back to her house on Sunday night so she can stay out with her boyfriend a little bit later. Totally happy to do it. I won't feel resentful about it. I will be happy to do it. No. But it's better to feel guilty than resentful. So I would have said no and happily been guilty about it. But I'm happy to do it, so I don't need to worry about it. Right. All right. Okay. Anything else? No. I don't think so. I think we're good. Thank you, everybody, for listening again. Yeah. Welcome. That there is no kitten noise in the background. Yay. And I am melting. Yes. I was like, it'll be fine. I'm very hot. I'm sure. Well, you figure it out. We'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. It'll be fine. I'll just keep putting... I should have been putting this on my wrist. That's what I should do. You can do it. I can do it. You can do it. I miss you. I love you. Thank you so much for doing this. Okay. And we will talk next week about Aaron's bulging eyeballs. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye.